I'm Jennifer Sanasi, you're watching News 24 Live. I'm joined in studio by Marina Strachen. She's the editor at Wine Extra. Today we're going to be tasting some bubbly and telling you how you can pair it with some delicious snacks. Hello.
Hi, Jennifer.
Thank you for coming in with all this beautiful bubbly.
Oh, what a pleasure to be able to chat about something that I feel so passionate about.
Well, bubbly is actually very popular at the moment. It seems to have just had a facelift. Everyone's speaking about bubbly. Why has it made this resurgence?
I think our South African bubblies have really made quite an impact on local and international markets. There's been major competition by people claiming that champagne is the best. I have to strongly question that. I think our South African MCCs are right up there and we compete with the best of the best. And I think it's because of this, the amazing flavor profiles and the great range and diversity of the wines that we're producing now, that's really, really hitting the market quite hard.
I actually prefer the South African MCCs to many of the champagnes, which is, I think, bad to say. I think a lot of people will hate me for that, but I do.
Not at all, because really the only thing that makes champagne champagne is the region in which it was grown. The method in which we make it here in South Africa is exactly the same. Our grapes that we use are the same cultivars, so there's no real difference except for where it's made, and the processes just make it elegant, beautiful, fine bubbles and really pretty to drink.
Yeah, now we're going to be sampling out of our fine sampling glasses, but you were actually telling me earlier that there's a move away from champagne flutes when drinking MCCs or champagne. Why is that?
That's correct. If you think back to the 80s, there was a big thing, the Marie Antoinette glasses, which were modeled on a certain part of her anatomy. That was what was traditionally used, and then it moved into the champagne flute, which is the long, tall glass. These days, champagne producers feel, or bubbly producers feel, that the wine gets a better nose and a better feel overall in a bigger glass, because you can swirl it nicer and the fragrance really comes to the fore a lot better in a more wide open glass, which you can't get that in a flute. The only downside to that is, unfortunately, you tend to miss a lot more bubbles. The bubbles tend to fade out and fizz away quite quickly.
Well, that was my next question. I've heard that you shouldn't swirl a bubbly because you lose those bubbles. Is that true?
Well, it depends on yourself.
Okay.
The reason to swirl it would be to open it up and to let those flavors come out. So if smelling the wine and getting that into your nasal system and into your brain to tantalize before you take that first sip is most important to you, then by all means swirl. There's really no right or wrong way.
You should enjoy wine exactly how you want to enjoy it.
Correct.
All right, well, let's talk about this first MCC we have here. It's a rosé.
It's a rosé, and this is the Vintage Brut Rosé from Charles Fox. And he's an amazing MCC producer. It's all he does, based out in Elgin.
Elgin is such a great area. I love the wines that come from Elgin.
Absolutely beautiful wines, such finesse, such light features and just beautiful quality. The ripeness of the fruit is absolutely perfect, and they get a beautiful elegance from the acidity that they have in that cool climate area. So yes, Elgin wines are absolutely fantastic.
Love it.
I can agree with you in every way. Charles is a gentleman who worked in a totally different career path all his life, and then retired and decided that this is what he wanted to do.
You know, you often hear winemakers were accountants or architects, and then they just decided, no, I want to make wine, which I think is really great.
Correct, and so he never studied winemaking or anything of that, but I have to say, in my opinion, the Charles Fox bubbly is one of the best out there. I think it's absolutely divine. They do 3 in their range as far as I know now, and I can highly recommend all of them. They're absolutely divine.
Yum!
Let's
have a taste.
Cheers.
Cheers. I love that sound. Now talk us through some of the flavors we're experiencing here after you have your sip.
Over here you're getting lots of strawberry flavors. It's slightly sweeter on the palate, even though this is a dry bubbly. That's not sweet by any stretch of the imagination. But lots of fruit flavors, summery flavors, and even some tropical fruit flavors.
I definitely get those berries now. I think a lot of people think if it's a little sweeter, if you're smelling berries, you need to pair it with something sweet. Is that the case?
Not necessarily. It does help, but the beauty of bubbly, and I think that's what people get wrong so much, is that it really can pair with anything. It can pair with something sweet, it can pair with something savory. It can actually, I've even had steaks with bubbly.
Because bubbly is amazing. It can just go with anything in my books, and I think in yours too.
It can go with anything, or it can go by itself quite well.
All right, well, we've paired this today with, I believe, the salmon canapes. Why did we do that?
The salmon is, firstly, I think we can echo the color of the bubbly into that salmon. It's just the most beautiful salmon pink, which I think kind of complements what we have here on the plate. And then the salmon flavor really just gets brought to the fore by this pairing. It highlights the wine, it highlights the flavor of the salmon, and I think that's the key in any kind of food pairing, is to enhance the flavor of the food and the wine, rather than detract from it, or change the flavor completely, and you kind of go, well, what am I actually tasting here? So just from a pairing perspective, it really highlights the salmon flavor, and I've got cracked black pepper on there. You can squirt a little bit of lemon on there if you want, just to enhance a bit of flavor, but not too much, because that acidity can also then damage the wine. So you have to kind of be a little bit careful.
Balancing act. Let's give it a try.
Let's go for it.
I'm just going to reach here. Excuse my reach.
That.
Whoopsies, I can't see it. There we go. And this is just on some rye bread.
Just on some plain rye bread. And the best way when you're pairing food with wine is to have a sip of your wine first, then a bite of your food, and kind of just before you are about to swallow, have another sip.
All right.
Just let it all mingle together. I think that works very well.
That's absolutely delicious. And the sweetness of the wine doesn't overpower.
No,
it's still a dry wine that can be had with savory.
It's still a dry wine, and it works beautifully with savory food.
Yum.
And I think people just need to play around. I think that's the key. Play around with your food. See what works and what doesn't work. The old rule of saying red meat works with red wine and white meat with white wine, throw that out, because anything can change. You can put chicken with a tomato base, and that will throw it out completely. Your whole theory will go through the floor. Whereas if you have it maybe with a creamy mushroom sauce, something else might work. So it's not really down to the meat itself, it's down to the full flavor profile of your dish. So play. I think that's the most important message I can ever give anyone, is play with your food and your wine. And why not?